So this is an arithmetic sequence or arithmetic sequence. What that means is that there's the same distance every time. So we imagine like 2, 5, 8, 11, 14. That's an arithmetic sequence because it jumps up by 3 each time. But it gives us the equation for it. So all we have to do is replace n with 1. And we can find out what t1 is straight away. So we go t1 is minus 254 plus. Now it's going to be 1 times 1 minus 1, which is 0. 0 times 4 is 0. So the answer is just going to be minus 254. So that's our first question done. Find the value of the common difference. Well, the common difference of the sequence I wrote up here was 3. So to get the common difference, you take away any term like t2 and take away the term that comes before it. So you could do t2 minus t1. You could do t3 minus t2. You could do t100 minus t99. Once both of them are in a row, you're grand. So that'd be t1, t2, t3 of the sequence I gave earlier. But I'm just going to calculate what t2 is using this formula here. And then once I calculate what t2 is, I can do t2 take away t1 to find the common difference. So it's going to be minus 254 plus n this time is 2. So it's going to be 2 take away 1. 2 take away 1 is 1, so it's going to be 1 times 4. And this answer is going to be minus 250. To get the d value, it's t2 take away t1. And t2 is going to be minus 250. T1 is minus 254. And as you can see, the gap between the two of them, the common difference is 4. So it'll go something like this: minus 254 is t1, t2 is minus 250, and you notice it just keeps going up 4 every time. And that's how you know how the sequence will work out. Find the smallest value of n. So find the smallest value of n for which it has to be bigger than 0. Okay, so it has to be bigger than 0. Okay, so I can show you a small little sort of cheat on this as well. You can use the table function. You can go table function. Instead of tn, use fx. Put in this general equation here, like so. And instead of n, use x. And what you can see right away is if I start this at 0 and end at 25, or sorry, start at a 1, excuse me, because you have to start at t1. So let's go back. You have to start at 1 because t1 is the first one. Now, if I go through all these numbers, see the way I'm going through all these numbers, I'm looking for when it goes near 0. And you can see I'm still absolutely miles away here. I'm still at minus 158, so I'm going to think a lot bigger than that. What I'm going to think is go again. So this time I'm going to start at like, I don't know, 50. T50 I'll start off with, and I'll end at T75. Let's see what happens this time. There's T50. Keep going downwards. And we got an answer there. T64 is minus 2, but T65 is plus 2. So it must cross at T65. Okay? So the other way of doing this is to multiply this out. We know the answer is n equals 65. Okay? But let's prove it. Multiply it out, and you get minus 254. Now we multiply this out, and we get 4n minus 4 greater than 0. And then 4n, now this is minus 258 on the right because minus 254 or minus 4 is minus 258. Transfer that to the other side. There we get minus 258. You know, and get that 258, and I'm going to divide it by 4. 258 divided by 4, and n has to be bigger than 64.5. Now, with sequences, you're allowed to have T1, T2, T3. See the way there's no T2.5 or T1.5? So you can either have T64 or T65. And we already know from earlier that T64 is negative. So the answer is n equals 65. Happy days. Now, the sum of the first n terms is given by this formula here. Now, let me explain what the sum of the first n terms means. So, if you remember the last question, Tn was minus 254 and T2 was minus 250. Essentially, S1 is the same as T1. S2 is the same as T1 plus T2. S3 is the same as T1 plus T2 plus T3. That's what the sum means. So S1 would actually be minus 254. S2 would be the two of them added together, which is minus 504. Then obviously S3, we know that it goes up 4 every time, so that'd be minus 246, which would make, minus 750 for that one. So that's how this formula works. So instead of working them all out individually, there's a general formula that they're giving us to show us how this works. Okay, solve the following equation for n equal n. So what they're saying is that the sum basically eventually these numbers will go positive, okay? And eventually it'll get really, really negative, and then all of a sudden it'll start to get positive again. So they're wondering how many terms does it take that they all add together and give you 0. So that's what this question's sort of about. Okay, so we'll give this question a go. So it's basically an algebra question. Just solve this equation is what they're asking us to do. Solve this equation. So let's start off with what's in the bracket. Let's start off with this part here. 2 times 2 minus 254 is minus 508. Plus 4n, take away 4. I'm only doing the yellow part at the moment, okay? Now it's going to be 4n minus 512. Okay, equals 0. Now I have the n over 2 on the outside. This means divide by 2 and multiply by n. So I can multiply by n and I get 4n squared minus 412n. However, I then can divide it all by 2. And I divide it by 2, I get 2n squared. And then 512 divided by 2 is 256n. Okay. All right. Now, let's take out 2n. When we take out 2n, we're left with n minus 128 equals 0. So you can do 2n equals 0, n equals 0. But remember, there's no such thing as t0. It always starts off with t1, t2, t3. So this answer just can't happen. And then the other answer is n minus 128 equals 0, n equals 128. For those of you that were going to use the minus b formula, your a value would be 2, your b value would be minus 256, your minus b formula would be 2 plus 256, and your c value would be 0. That's if you went through the minus b formula. Okay, so that is question 6 done there. Now, question 7.